Good evening. Hello, everyone. It's Tom, host of Out Here, Finding Freedom After 50 and Simple Solo Rural. I'm going to give people a minute or two to arrive because this is an unannounced live edition of the podcast. Whew. Silence. And you got to ignore that urge to fill it with some scrolling on the phone, some distraction, some dopamine from social media. Just taking a few deep breaths in and out to get ready. I'm recording this episode from a rather unusual location, to be honest with you. Tonight, I find myself in a motel room. Not somewhere I planned to be, not somewhere I really wanted to be honest with you. It's just where I am tonight due to a few circumstances in my life that were ultimately, despite my best efforts, beyond my control. And I don't know about you, but motel rooms have a way of stripping life back down to the basics. There's a bed, a chair, a lamp, in this case, very thin walls. I can hear the water running anytime someone in this motel is turning on a tap. But there's a quiet here that isn't quite peaceful, but it's not exactly chaotic either. There's no momentum, there's no sense of routine, no forward motion. This is just where I happen to be parked tonight to get on with some stuff this week that I really didn't want to do in a place I really didn't want to do it. So if this episode feels a little different, if it feels a little slower, maybe even a little uncomfortable at times, it's intentional, but it's also a reaction to the reality of my life at this very moment. This is not a performance. This episode sure as hell is not advice, and it's not something you need to do anything with. It's just a moment in time that I've decided to sit down and share with you. You don't need to comment. You don't need to agree. You don't have to answer. But I would appreciate it if you take time to listen. Because what I want to talk to you about tonight actually fits a place like this current situation. There's a sentence I used to be afraid of, very afraid of, to say out loud. And here it is. If this is the rest of my life, I'm okay with that. Let me repeat that. If this is the rest of my life, I'm okay with that. I want to sit with that sentence for a moment. For many men, just hearing it creates an immediate reaction. Some hear it and think it sounds like, I'm giving up. Others feel something tighten in their chest because it sounds dangerously close to a thought they've been pushing away themselves. And if you had any reaction at all just now, whether it was discomfort, relief, or resistance, that tells me this conversation is meant for you. That sentence feels heavy because most men are carrying an invisible blueprint for how their life was supposed to look. It's not exactly written down, and it wasn't consciously chosen. It was just something absorbed over time as we were programmed by cues from our parents, our relatives, our teachers, and the media around us. By this age, certain things should have happened. Life should look a certain way. And there should be proof that it worked, that you're a success after all. And when life doesn't follow that blueprint, that no one really ever gave us, but somehow we all know it instinctually. Something happens to us internally. There's a sense of grief, but men don't usually call it grief. We'll call it other things like disappointment or restlessness or boredom, or we just say, I don't know what's wrong. Sometimes that grief shows up quietly, late at night, in unfamiliar places, where there's nothing left to distract you. A motel room has a way of bringing those things to the surface because there's nowhere to perform here. One of the hardest things for men to accept is that life changed. It's that the version of life we were chasing may never have been real. Let me repeat that. One of the hardest things for men to accept isn't that life changed. It's that the version of life we were chasing may never have been real or what we really wanted in the first place. And that realization can feel really uncomfortable. It can feel really destabilizing because men are taught in subtle and often not so subtle ways to measure themselves by momentum, progress, movement, output, results. So when momentum slows because of divorce, loss, burnout, illness, or simply getting older, it doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it can feel threatening. Stillness starts to feel like failure. Pauses feel dangerous. But stillness isn't the absence of growth. Very often, it's the precondition for it. It's the first moment where you're no longer reacting and you can finally see things for what they really are. That only becomes clear when we separate two ideas that get confused all the time: resignation and acceptance. Resignation says, this is all there is, man. Acceptance says, this is where I am at the moment. Resignation shuts you down. Acceptance grounds you and tells you where you are right now so you can start mapping out something else, a better destination, a more truthful, a more authentic destination for you. Acceptance returns it. Sorry, I was just checking to see if there's any comments in the live screen, but so far, nothing. You can't build a meaningful future when you're still fighting in the present. And places like this, temporary stripped down places like this motel room, make that painfully obvious. When resistance eases, even slightly, something shifts inside you. The nervous system settles. That constant mental noise softens just a bit, and clarity becomes possible. And it's usually at that point, when the things finally slow down in your head, that real meaningful questions show up, the ones that men don't ask aloud very often, if at all. And I want to read you a question that captures this moment perfectly. It's from a viewer named Mark. My name's Mark. I'm 52, and I did what I was supposed to do. Marriage, career, responsibilities. Now I'm divorced, living alone, and I can't shake the feeling that I missed my chance. I'm not falling apart, but I'm not excited about the future either. How do you make peace with where you are without giving up on what could still be ahead? And my listeners, if that question landed for you, you're not alone. Mark is describing a place many men arrive at quietly, not in crisis, not broken, but not inspired either. That in between space is uncomfortable, but it's also important because it usually shows up right after life stops distracting you. Making peace with where you are is not the same as closing the door on the future. It's stepping out of the argument you've been having with your past. When a man is constantly measuring today against what should have been, his system stays tense. Peace is not complacency. Peace is what allows you to begin thinking about the future, about thinking about forward actions, moving on with your life. You don't have to give up on your future by accepting the present. By accepting the present, you're giving your future a chance to become. And you don't have to start with big goals. You start by changing how you relate to yourself. Less judgment, more curiosity, less pressure, and more honesty. So, Mark, if you happen to be listening to this episode tonight, and to anyone else who's recognizing himself in that question, you haven't missed your chance. You're just standing at a different entrance, at a different on ramp to the highway of life than you expected to find yourself at. This brings me back to that sentence. If this is the rest of my life, I'm okay with that. That sentence doesn't mean you're done. It sure doesn't mean I'm done. It means I've stopped pretending. It means I've stopped negotiating with the version of my life that no longer fits. These may be the later chapters of my life, and they may be a little quieter. They might be a little less polished. I have a feeling they're going to be a lot less predictable, but they sure are not empty. It means the story is finally being written from where you are actually, not where you wish you were. And that's an important distinction. I'm going to say that again. It means the story, your life story, is finally being written from where you actually are, not where you wished you were, not where other people expect you to be at, but where you actually happen to be at. And it changes what you write, how you write it, and how you feel about it. Something happens when a man allows that. Being okay doesn't mean being passive. It means you stop burning energy wishing your reality was different. And then that energy comes back to you. And when it does, you can often rediscover clarity, meaning, choice, direction. Growth driven by panic rarely lasts. Growth built on stability usually does last. And I want to say this carefully. If you're not okay right now, that makes sense. If you're listening from a place you didn't expect to be in life, emotionally, physically, relationally, that makes sense too. I'm afraid there's no timeline for healing, but healing does require active participation on your part. Personal development isn't about fixing yourself. It's about learning how to relate to yourself honestly, especially when no one else is watching, when there's no one left to impress. It's just you against you and the world. And when you stop fighting where you are, the future stops feeling like something you have to chase. You don't have to be louder. You don't have to impress anyone. Maybe your future is going to be something of a much deeper meaning, something quieter, but something much more aligned with who you really want to become. A future that is built on truth lasts a lot longer than one built on performance. And for many men, that's when life finally feels like it's starting to feel like their own true life, because we've been programmed so early to perform, to exceed expectations, to wow our coaches and our parents and our spouses and our coworkers. And we lose sight of the most important, yourself. You don't need to explain the whole story to anyone. One sentence is enough. Even something as simple as, this hit closer than I expected, or I'm in that in between place and I'm okay with that. If you're not ready to comment publicly on today's episode, that's okay. I just want you to know this. You're not the only one having these thoughts tonight. If this is the rest of your life, you're not settling. You're standing on solid ground, even if that ground feels a little unfamiliar right now. And from solid ground, something real can still be built. There's plenty of time left. So I'll ask you one quiet campfire question before we end. Where in your life are you still arguing with the reality instead of working with it? Where in your life are you still arguing with reality instead of working with it? You don't need to answer tonight. You don't need a plan. You just need a space. You just need some space. And your story, my friend, just like mine, is not even close to being finished. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I really enjoyed this episode. A little speech from the heart. I hope in some way it challenged you to look at your life, to look at a way of accepting your reality and then pausing, calming your mind, and just hearing, yes, this is something I can do. This is my future that I want to create. And then start making plans to go after the life that you really want. It is the rest of your life. It's time for you to hold the pen, grab onto it, and write the future with the ending that you want to have. My friends, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Out Here, Finding Freedom After 50. I try to publish an episode every 2 weeks. Obviously, my track record has not been anywhere close to that, but that is the goal that I'm going to try for in 2026. This has been the first episode of 2026. I decided to do it live from a place I didn't think I'd find myself, but here I am. And we will catch you in the next episode. Best wishes. Take care.